Before we start the video, yes, I did see the part 2 leaks, but they're not mentioned in this video for spoiler reasons and because LEGO would most likely strike my channel. Please do not discuss the leaks in the comments of this video to avoid spoiling others, but you can discuss them in my Discord server, so feel free to join that. There is a link on screen and in the description of this video. Without further ado, on with the video. Dragons Rising to me is a show about people changing and taking on new roles and identities. This idea stems from the "We are all dragons" speech that Sora gives at the end of Season 1, and with dragons being compared to people and vice versa, the name Dragons Rising seems to be another way to say people's rising, as in taking on new roles and rising to new challenges in a strange and ever-changing world. The show itself seems to support this idea quite a lot, with the central team constantly expanding, and the old and new members having to adapt to new circumstances, and an obvious case of this is found in Lloyd and his Master arc. The Master Lloyd storyline was one the old show really neglected after Season 7, so one of the earliest things that got me hooked and interested in Dragons Rising was the fact that they were finally going to pick this plotline back up after 6 whole years, and the endless possibilities with the team being ever changing with new students made this all the more exciting to me. I imagine this was probably a selling point for a lot of other people too, because LEGO marketed the idea of Master Lloyd a lot in the first year of Dragons Rising's run, so they obviously knew that this was an exciting moment for the franchise, and thankfully those first couple of seasons absolutely delivered on the hype. Lloyd was finally able to take on the role of leading the team in a way that made sense for the show, because with new recruits it was only logical for him to be training them with the rest of the team gone, and by the time they eventually returned, Lloyd had come into his own a bit more and it made complete sense for him to be leading the team. When he officially takes up the mantle of Master, it feels very earned for him because Lloyd doesn't need to prove himself to get it. There's no big trial for him to overcome, and his strengths and qualities make him ready to be a Master. However, despite his best efforts, Aaron ends up leaving the team to train under Raz, a big failure on Lloyd's part as a Master and a leader. While this is a blow to Lloyd, he didn't entirely fail as a Master. He still led his team through the Tournament of Sorcerers, stopped the Five from having every elemental power, and disrupted Raz's plan of getting to the Source Dragons. So despite the losses the team took during the tournament, they did still take a considerable amount of wins. They started to push Lloyd in a very interesting direction here, because upon learning that Wu was the one who plunged the world into chaos by causing the merge, he seems visibly disappointed and disillusioned by him when he sees his ghost after the battle with Nox, which isn't something we've ever really seen Lloyd express, so them moving his story in this direction really excited me. The way I envisioned Lloyd's Master story moving forward was him grappling with the fact that his uncle and Master might not be everything he believed he was, causing him to put Wu into question and by extension putting his own leadership into doubt, because while he didn't fail, he did still lose one of his students to Raz, and it is in part due to the fact that he's been trying to follow in Wu's footsteps, so seeing him have to grapple with the truth about Wu and think about where he himself went wrong as a teacher would have been some great development for Lloyd, what with him continuously making false promises and postponing finding Aaron's parents time and time again for other stuff. Lloyd was absolutely in need of a reality check because throughout DR he would keep thinking about what Wu would do and how he would train the new recruits. So with Wu having caused the universe to fold in on itself, it seemed obvious that Lloyd would have to reassess how he does things as a leader to the team, and become more of his own person rather than just another Master Wu. Having a story where Lloyd learns from Wu's mistakes at a young age, and not only grow as a Master but as a person would have been some really compelling stuff for Dragons Rising's upcoming 3rd installment, and would have continued to push Lloyd's character into new and exciting places, but unfortunately, like a lot of things in the first half of Season 3, none of this was paid off or really came to fruition. Lloyd in Dragons Rising Season 3 feels like he's reacting to the plot and events of the season in the same way he would have reacted back in Season 1, because he doesn't feel changed as a person by the events of Season 2, and none of what I described as my ideal route for Master Lloyd's story came to be. We see that he misses Aaron and wants to find him, but then we also see that he hasn't learned anything about getting sidetracked, because as soon as Zane and Pixel find him in the First Lands, they go back to the monastery and make a plan to stop the Forbidden Five. While I do understand that the Five are a threat and supposedly the most dangerous warriors to ever live, they really try to have their cake and eat it here because the Ninja do not give a damn about these guys until halfway through the season, so it just feels like the Ninja go from forgetting about the Five to ditching the search for Aaron entirely, giving them a very inconsistent set of priorities. I feel as though they didn't learn anything about staying on target and not getting sidetracked, which is something the Ninja absolutely should know about since the frustration that Aaron expressed to Sora, and Lloyd should have been checking in on Sora after all of this since I imagine they were the most affected by Aaron leaving. This could just be nitpicking on my part, but the team is absolutely large enough to the point where they could have had one team go after the Forbidden Five and another go after Aaron, though there is also the search for Jay, so the team could have been one a bit too thin. Either way, the search for Aaron feels like it gets completely sidetracked, and as bad as the line Zane gives here is, Zane is somewhat valid to call out Lloyd when they did just get distracted from finding him a couple of episodes ago. And it all just feels very baffling to me since Lloyd doesn't seem to have reflected on what could have driven Aaron away in the slightest between seasons. Along with not learning anything about not getting sidetracked, Lloyd makes absolutely no progress in separating his worldview from that of Wu's. In an insane turn of events, Lloyd ends up hand-waving the death of Aaron's parents all because Wu was the one who caused the merge. Realistically, this should have been something that makes Lloyd pull away even further from Wu's teachings and ideologies, because while the merge did bring everyone together, it also had so many catastrophic consequences, even causing one of the ninja to be lost for the foreseeable future without his memories. Wu most likely did have good intentions by causing the merge, but they really did not do a good job of nuancing this idea in the slightest, and it completely goes against the light in the darkness and darkness in the light approach they've gone for with this show. And I feel that Lloyd should be feeding into the idea that Wu caused darkness because it's cost the ninja and so many others so much, and that does need to be acknowledged by the ninja team at some point. Lloyd not being disillusioned by Wu here just feels like a complete U-turn for his arc and sets him back quite a bit in his overall story. Lloyd's arc has just come to a screeching halt so that we can spend another 10 episodes hyping up the guy who caused an immeasurable amount of chaos, and it kinda removes all the nuance Lloyd's story had going for it when it comes to Wu as a master and Lloyd's separation from him. The lack of nuance this part brings to Lloyd's story is not helped in the slightest by Lloyd not even recognizing Aaron as someone who can make his own choices. Because when they find him, Lloyd treats him like he's a prisoner of war who's been mind controlled by Raz without even considering the possibility that Raz might have something to offer Aaron that Lloyd doesn't. This again goes against the light and the darkness idea they have going on, because while Raz is undoubtedly an evil guy, Lloyd doesn't ever consider that Aaron is there by choice and immediately try to get him back with them as if he's being held captive, which really sucks because this could have been a good bit of development for Lloyd where he realizes that he's made mistakes and apologizes to Aaron for his shortcomings as a master. But having Lloyd refuse to see Aaron as his own independent actor really sucks and shows a noticeable lack of development on Lloyd's part, which again, kills a lot of the momentum his Dragons Rising story had up until this point. While Lloyd does mention in episode 10 that they're free to make their own choices about masters, it doesn't feel earned in any way because there's nothing that makes him come to this realization, and it just feels very lazily tacked onto the end of the story to allow Sora to join Raz and Aaron easily without Lloyd fighting back against it, which is just really lazy and boring in my opinion. All in all, the continuation of Lloyd's arc in Dragons Rising Season 3 was very far from ideal for me, and it suffers from the Season 3 Part 1 problem where it simply fails to be a satisfying follow-up to a lot of the stuff that Season 2 presented to us, and it leaves a lot of the characters and stories feeling very hollow. It's very unfortunate because Season 2 is probably the best season this show has, but one of its biggest strengths is how much interesting stuff it sets up for the characters and world of Ninjago. Lloyd's story is definitely one that suffered a lot in the first half of the season, but the silver lining is that it isn't irreparably damaged. Most of my issues can be fixed in the next Dragons Rising installment if they go down the route I was hoping for, because this isn't character regression in the same way Crystallize was, it just feels like a very pointless bump in the road that is Master Lloyd's story that just didn't have to exist, and it's very unfortunate because Lloyd was always a very consistently good character in Dragons Rising, and his arc up until this point really didn't have many issues with it. But alas, here we are, and so all I can do is hope that these issues are addressed or fixed in whatever the next Dragons Rising installment has to offer to us. I know the Ninjago writing team can do better with this world and characters, so I really do believe that there is hope for his character still. I just really hope they take the opportunity to address the flaws in his writing here. Thank you all for watching this video up until the end, it means a ton and I cannot thank you guys enough for your constant support of me and the channel, and if you did enjoy this video and aren't subscribed, please consider doing so because it would help me out a ton. With that being said, I bid you all farewell and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye. Well, at least Lloyd's vision stuck around, right guys? Right?
You feel tired, look at yourself. Inside your heart you will find a special place to unlock.